Let's Chat Reality. I'm Michael.
And I'm Molly.
And today we are so excited. We have with us Jordan Staff from season 6 of The Circle. Jordan, how are you?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. How have the last few weeks been for you? It's been, I'm sure, a crazy time since the show dropped. What has that all been like for you?
Oh, I mean, it's been insane. The love and support is just overwhelming. The positivity has just been so great. No, it's been a lot of fun, honestly. I've had a lot of fun with it, and I'm excited to talk about the game and talk about what wasn't shown.
Yeah, no, definitely. We are definitely going to get into that. But let's just start at the beginning. How did you end up on The Circle? I know you're a Big Brother fan, so I'm not sure what other shows that competition shows that you've been watching, but were you also a fan of The Circle as well?
Oh yeah, I'm a fan of every social strategy show, like Survivor, Big Brother, The Traitors, House of Villains, The GOAT now, everything with a voting component or elimination component, Drag Race, all of it. I watch all of it. And The Circle, I actually applied in 2021, and I got really far into the process, past finals, because even finals, when it comes to The Circle, that doesn't mean you're on. When they tell you you're flying out, you're not on until you're in the apartment. So I got really far in that process. That didn't work out. Thought the show was ending because I saw on Twitter that they were dismantling the apartments in the UK. And then they brought it back, and I was like, let me try again. And it worked out this time.
Awesome. So you decided to come on playing as Big J, which was a version of yourself before your weight loss journey. And you've explained that as that you felt like it would look more approachable, less obviously strategic. And so tell us a little bit about how you chose the photos that you ended up choosing on there and picking your bio for that. Did you ever consider playing as your current self or a total catfish, or was that always the plan?
Yeah, so I mean, I did consider playing as myself at the very beginning, but in The Circle, there's just you're seeing a face and some words, and I thought there would be more room for error using my current photos because I'm a photographer. So my photos are very douchey, staring right at the camera type thing. So I was I feel like there would be more room for error if I did that versus if I used my old photos. And when it came down to my photos I used in The Circle, you get the two profile photos, and I don't know if they actually showed that in the edit or not, but you get to have two photos in your bio. So I wanted two photos, one that represented a masculine side and one that represented a feminine side. That way I felt like I could connect to everyone in The Circle.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Molly, go ahead.
Yeah, so we saw that you joined in episode 6 as a late edition with Autumn. Did you know that you were going to be a late edition coming in, or how did that affect the game when you started playing?
Yeah, so you don't really know that you're going in late in the game. I mean, you can kind of start putting 2 and 2 together based on when you fly in and when you fly out, and just me being a fan of the show, I know how long the game lasts for. So I kind of realized I was going in the middle, but it's not like you get briefed on anything. You don't get told here's where we're at in the game, here's how many blockings have been going on. So once I got in and kind of realized where I was at, that kind of shifted my strategy, because I feel when you go into the middle of The Circle, it's a completely different game, right? You can't waste time creating those core bonds, because if you do, the power structure is going to stay the same. Maybe you'll align with one person that doesn't really have anyone, but that doesn't set you up for the end. So I feel when you come in the middle, the main objective is to kind of dismantle what's already going on and try to rebuild that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So we also saw that Miles was the first person you chatted with when you came into the game, and it seemed like he trusted you for a little bit, but you definitely did not trust him. So talk to us a little bit more about that and what led you to thinking he was your number one target.
Yeah, so when I first came in, the conversations are so much longer than what's shown. Obviously, it's TV. They don't have time for that. But there was 2 core things that I noticed in my first conversation with Miles, at least from my perspective, in hindsight's 2020. But the first message that he had sent me was oh, let's talk this hot goss and Kiki, da-da-da-da-da. And then the conversation got really broy. So in my head, not knowing Miles, not knowing who Miles is as a person, right? Miles is just this quirky guy. But the shift in the conversation made me feel like he was trying to manipulate me into choosing to talk to him. So that was a red flag for me right there. Obviously, like I said, hindsight's 2020. Another thing he had told me was that, and this wasn't in the edit, I don't think, that he was in a showmance. So I'm okay, that's an issue. We've all seen the shows when there's a showmance, 2 powerful players, they're linked together like that. You got to break that up. And thirdly, he had told me that he just had power most human. I didn't know that, obviously. You don't get briefed. In my head, I'm thinking influencer. And he told me that he had this little like tiff going on with Cassie. So in my head, I'm like, okay, this is good knowledge. Because like I said, going into the circle in the middle, I wanted to kind of dismantle what was already going on. So I figured there's a crack right there in his game. Maybe I can turn that into a full break.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Also, did you ever think you could consider switching that up at any point and aligning with him, or are you just still stuck with that he's a threat?
You know, so I said many times throughout the show, and I've had a lot of questions like, why didn't you turn QT? QT was the most powerful player, right? I said it right when I got paired up with her, that QT has been my like biggest threat in this game, and now I happen to work with her. After Ride or Die's ended and Autumn came to see me, I told Autumn, QT has been my biggest threat in this game, but I've been forced to work with her. So QT was always the biggest target for me, but I felt like since I had already started laying the groundwork on Miles and that QT was just so well liked in the circle, I didn't think I had a shot of getting her help. Would the better strategy to be to turn on Kyle and like maybe, you know, go for him a bit potentially? But I didn't realize about Tres Fuegos till later on. So I didn't really know about Kyle's game. And I had already started laying all this groundwork on Miles. Mm-hmm. So I felt like I had to stick with him, especially once I figured out there was the trio going on.
Yeah. No, okay. That makes a lot of sense. So now knowing that QT was a big target of yours, now the next episode, QT ended up being your Ride or Die. Right. So what was going through your mind when you found that out? What was your kind of best and worst case scenario in your head when you found out about that twist?
I don't remember what worst case scenario was for me. But I definitely wanted to be with QT. Like, especially because I had just gotten the circle. I think it was maybe my third day there. I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like, I didn't know how long it would last. I was thinking maybe one blocking. I didn't think it would take up so much time. But that was like best case scenario for me because she was the most well-liked in the circle. And that would allow me to get information from her, share a little information, and just get more like of a basis of what's going on. So I was so excited about that.
Did you ever figure out who anyone else's Ride or Die was during those weeks? And if so, how did that influence your strategy at all?
Yeah. So when we did I forgot what they called it on the show, but it was like the most and least likely. Everyone used that to kind of connect everyone with each other. Uh-huh. But Lauren calling out Autumn for every person in the circle, it ruined two of the pairs. So I thought Lauren was with Kyle, and I thought Autumn was with Paul. But everyone else I had figured out. The other three, I guess, the other three pairs, well, one of them's me. But how did that affect my strategy? I mean, I don't know if it did. Like, especially going into that, like, final or in that blocking. I don't know if there was ever really a time for me to truly need to think about that, but it was always, like, I had the information if I needed to. It's hard to kind of think back on my mindset at the time because it's been so long, and especially when things aren't like in the edit, it's hard to like re-jog my memory.
Sure, no, of course. It's been what, 6 months I think since you filmed that.
It was it was September going into the first week of October. So it's been a minute.
Yeah, well, it's been a while. So let's fast forward a bit to that influencer chat that you had with QT. Now I heard that lasted, 3 hours, I think.
Yeah, and it did not, like, it felt like a long time, but when they told me it had been 3 hours, I was shocked. Like, I think we left our apartments at like 9 p.m. and we got back and it was like 1 a.m. Like, it was crazy. Yeah.
So, yeah, during that time, you pressed really hard to save Autumn and get that target back on Miles. Now, looking back, do you have any regrets about the way that was handled at all? Or do you think that, if you'd gone about it a little differently, that you could have had a different result there?
So my entire mindset in the circle was like, I don't care about getting the next episode. I care about winning, right? Mm-hmm. And then going into that influencer chat, I was just 6th in the ratings. And I knew that there would probably be only one more blocking till the end. And I wanted to do what I needed to do to set myself up best. Now knowing like her leaving was an option, sure, I would have gamed it completely differently, right? I would have been more negotiable. But in my head, we had to come to a decision just because this has never happened before.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Well, also the next blocking we saw before that, you had a chat with Brandon or Olivia and Lauren, and you were talking about the importance of breaking up that trio or the Tres Fuego alliance of Kyle, QT, and Miles, which obviously we think was very instrumental. But do you think that was instrumental in that chat you had with Brandon and helping that potentially then block Miles?
I mean, I absolutely think so, 100%. I mean, even like Michelle Buteau credited it to me, like when I was walking through the hallway. Like, so I'm pretty sure that definitely had something to do with me.
Yeah, for sure. So what went through your mind when Brandon walked out in the finale when you saw him as Olivia? And did you think that at all before you met him?
No, absolutely not. I think it was when I was putting on my suit, or maybe even when we were doing the group chat with Lauren and Olivia, because my perception of Olivia the entire time was like, she's just an emotional player. And I was yelling at her in that chat, like, because she was not like, she had said something, I don't think it was in the air on the show, but it was like, it's just hard for me to see these people as players and not humans. And I'm like, we're playing a game. Like, who cares who they are? You don't even know if they're real. You're not even real. Like, why does it matter? Oh my God. Oh, so anyways, I had said that, like, if Olivia's not Olivia, give her the money, right? And it's not even that, like, being the best catfish is, like, the winning, like, goal, right? But when Brandon walked out on that stage, I just felt like it was game over because I just felt so played. And I felt like everyone felt so played. And I was like, oh, this wasn't the nice girl I thought it was.
Yeah. Did you think anyone else could have been a catfish in this season?
No, but I wasn't thinking about it because I didn't care. Like, and maybe I should have thought about it a little more. Like, I feel like if I would have thought about, is Brandon a catfish? Just because in my perception, it was this really nice, like, blonde girl. What I should have done in that, like, position is think about what casting have cast this type of person. Because if I would have thought that way, then I could have realized, oh, this could be a catfish and they could be playing differently than I think they are, right? I didn't care if you were a catfish. You weren't a target if you were a catfish. But I think it would have influenced my way of thinking about them as a player.
Yeah.
That's so hard. That's so much easier in hindsight, though, to think that way. In the moment, I could never convince myself that was correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we also, I feel like catfish hunting has been like a thing in the previous seasons of The Circle. So why do you think it wasn't a focus this season?
Well, I just feel like the game is evolving. Just like every like show, like Big Brother, Survivor, all of them have like this evolution of the way the game is played. And I think just people watching the game back realize like it doesn't matter if you're a catfish if you're working for me. Like there's no incentive to get the catfish out. It's not like $10,000 is getting added to the prize pot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So were you surprised by Brandon's win, or were you surprised by anyone else's final placements at the end of rankings?
I wasn't surprised by Brandon's win at all, especially when I saw him walk out on the stage. Like I was so interested to know what was really going on, like behind the scenes. I wanted QT to win. Obviously, like watching the season back, Brandon's like a great winner. Like even whenever I get fourth place, I hug QT and I say, "You got this," because I always wanted her to win if it wasn't me. But the issue is like going into that final blockings, I wasn't going to give up until it was done. So like that's why I rated her in fourth. But I guess I wasn't shocked by QT's placement though because I tanked her.
Yeah. That is interesting. I feel like that's something we hadn't seen in previous seasons with really strategically placing people in that type of way. In the past, we've kind of just seen people, pick their favorite or who they think deserves it best first and then going down. But yeah, I feel like this season was just so much more strategic in general. Do you kind of think that that's something that will continue in future seasons, or was that just kind of by way of this specific cast and the way that y'all were playing?
So 7 filmed right after us. That's public knowledge. So don't sue me, Netflix. So I think 7 won't be different, but I do think if they renew it, season 6 will shape the way the game is played moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, it's safe to say, kind of sticking on your gameplay, that your gameplay was considered to be polarizing by fans.
100%.
Would you consider yourself a villain in the game?
In the game, 100%. Yeah. Like, I was playing a dirty game. I don't think it would have been received the same way if I was on, like, Survivor or Big Brother. I just think that the Circle audience and the Netflix audience as a whole don't necessarily watch for the game. Especially, like, season 1 of The Circle was kind of founded on this, like, friendship type thing. I just don't think the Circle fans are used to seeing that.
Yeah, I think that I remember seeing this somewhere, that Netflix fans of reality TV on Netflix are people who generally don't watch other reality TV. And they're kind of going to react differently than someone who's, a Big Brother fan, a Survivor fan, just fans of those 100%. Shows in general. They kind of respect that gameplay more than maybe the average Netflix viewer.
I agree.
What would you say that your best move was during the season? And is there one that you would take back if you could?
Would I take anything back? I mean, I think the only thing I would take back is if I knew that QT could leave the influencer chat, I would have gamed that really differently. I think my biggest move, and I guess it depends who you talk to if you think it was my move or not, but I really think I set the foundation for Miles getting out in that final blocking, 100%. Mm-hmm. And I think like the way I went to Kyle was kind of setting up this situation like it's 2-2, you need a pair. That was the best strategy I could do in that moment. Obviously, he took that and kind of applied it to himself with Olivia. And then going to Olivia and Lauren and getting in this group chat and like lying down like, hey, they're a trio. We need to be the trio. I feel like that was a pretty solid game move.
I agree with that. Yeah, Molly, go ahead. You have the next one.
And going off the game a little bit, we've seen a lot of pictures with you recently and videos with the cast on Instagram and TikTok. So it seems like right now there's no hard feelings with anyone, but were there any conversations that needed to be had after the game in order to get to that point, or was everyone pretty forgiving?
I mean, everyone was really forgiving. Like, there was conversations that were had, but it wasn't like we need to clear this up. Like, so after we filmed finale, we got shuffled to a hotel room. A lot of people had like early flights, and it was like me, Brandon, Lauren, and Miles were like the ones that stay up the latest, and we were talking about the game. And then Lauren and Brandon went to bed, and like me and Miles stayed up to like 5 a.m. just talking about the game. It wasn't like, yo, why did you do this? It was just talking about the game. I think like 3 weeks after we filmed, I went and stayed at Miles' house. QT came over, like me, QT, Stephanie, and Miles had like a little weekend in LA. So no, there was never any hard feelings.
Yeah, well, can you give us any of the tea with Miles and QT? Has anything happened there, or are they just friends?
They're definitely not just friends, but I don't think they're anything official. They're definitely like seeing each other, going on dates, 100%.
Awesome. Well, we're rooting for them. Yeah. And would you ever do another season of The Circle, and if so, would you ever do it differently? Sorry.
Yeah, I think it just kind of depends where I come into the game, right? I would definitely do another season of The Circle. I think it would be really interesting to see like an All-Stars where like it's like half catfish and half All-Stars, but the half catfish are catfishing as previous players of The Circle.
Oh, I love that.
I think that'd be really cool. I would do The Traitors. That's like my dream show. I know right now they're casting like A-list people, but every interview I go on, I'm like, let me get out in the universe. House of Villains would also be so fun. It's so camp. Like, it would just be so fun. So those two are my top two right now. I mean, obviously The Circle, but
yeah.
Yeah, no, we would love to see you on The Traitors. Traitors is one of our favorite shows right now, so that would be great.
Yeah. And they're about to start filming, so you better get ready, Jordan.
Right. Netflix released me for my contract. I gotta go.
Yeah. Would you do like Big Brother? I know that I heard you say that was your original goal, but would you now do that, or do you think that that's too much of a commitment?
It would be. I mean, I would do it. I mean, they're like they would never have anyone else on. Like they had Sari, and then they.
I was gonna say, yeah, they have, yeah.
Season 17, who were the people from The Amazing Race, but it's all
Jeff and Jackie, yeah.
It's always been CBS people, so I don't think they would ever like cross network. But if they did, absolutely. Would it be insane? Like absolutely, especially after living The Circle, like just cameras 24/7. I'm like, I don't know how people do it for 3 months. It's insane.
Know. Yeah, and with the live feeds, especially
the live feeds.
Yes. So before we go, is there any misconception that you feel like people have about you or your gameplay from the season that you want to clear up?
I mean, the whole Miles obsession thing, but I feel like I've already cleared that up. Like, if you just think about my game in not a one-dimensional way, it makes sense. Like, people think, like, I have a crush on him. I'm jealous of the way he dresses, like this. And it's like people, I don't see him in his apartment moving around. I see a picture on my screen. One picture. What's there to be jealous of? And I just think those are people that are thinking too one-dimensionally. But that's been like my biggest criticism. People have said I play too hard when I come in so hot. But when you come in the middle, you have to, or else you just lay down and you get blocked in the final blocking, or you fade in the background and you're just at the bottom. So I felt like coming in the middle, I did what I had to do to give myself the best shot.
Yeah, I think coming in midway, that's so tough. Especially, I mean, you were episode 6. Like, that's not super early on. Like, there's a lot of gameplay that's been played before that. 100%. So that makes things a lot more difficult, I think.
Yeah.
Well, where can our listeners follow you on social media? Have anything that you want to plug that's coming out?
Nothing to plug, but you can find me everywhere at It's Jordan Staff. If there's something to plug in the future, it'll be there. Maybe I'll be on another show one day.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Jordan. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And thank you all for listening. So we will catch you all next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.